into Australia's sanctions regime, and I welcome Mr. Andrew Mencinsky from the Ukrainian Council of New South Wales. I understand that information on parliamentary privilege and the protection of witnesses giving evidence to Senate committees has been provided to you. For the Hansard record, will you please state your full name and the capacity in which you appear today?
My name is Andrew Mencinsky, and I am appearing as the Vice President of the Ukrainian Council of New South Wales.
Thank you, Mr. Mencinsky. I'll now invite you to make a short opening statement, and at the conclusion of your remarks, I will invite senators to ask you questions.
Thank you. Thank you, senators, for allowing me to appear today on behalf of the Ukrainian Council of New South Wales. Firstly, I'd like to say that the situation in Ukraine remains very challenging. For almost 1,000 days, Ukraine has bravely resisted Russia's brutal, illegal and unprovoked invasion. Just yesterday, Russia unleashed a massive missile attack upon many areas in Ukraine, including the capital, Kyiv. In the last few weeks, Russia has launched nearly 100 missiles, around 600 drones, and more than 1,000 guided aerial bombs at Ukraine, killing at least 50 civilians and injuring hundreds more. The Ukrainian community here in Sydney, and in fact Australia, including many displaced Ukrainians, are grieving this heinous loss of life. I'd also like to inform the committee that since the start of the full-scale invasion, over 140,000 war crimes by Russians have been registered in Ukraine. Over $700 billion of damage to Ukrainian homes and infrastructure has been caused. Over 3,800 educational facilities and over 1,500 medical facilities have been damaged or destroyed, and more than 20,000 Ukrainian children are confirmed to have been kidnapped and deported to Russia against their will. Now, these atrocities don't come cheap. The existing sanctions regime, while a good starting point, has not, it's fair to say, done enough to curtail the funds that fuel Russia's war machine. It is the position of the Ukrainian Council of New South Wales that Australia's sanctions regime must be strengthened to enable greater deterrence on Russia's ability to continue its aggression. In its submission, the UCNSW proposed 8 high-level recommendations. Now, I won't read them out in full, but I would like, however, just to summarise them under what I've just coined the 8 C's of sanctions. So 1, consistency. I think Australia should align with our closest allies to ensure that sanctions are applied in a timely and consistent manner. This reduces sanctions arbitrage, where sanctioned individuals can shift operations here to Australia potentially to a less stringent environment than they may have elsewhere. 2, consequences. We should expand our Magnitsky-style sanctions further to target individuals who have committed human rights abuses. Significant economic and legal consequences need to apply to hinder those individuals' ability to operate and generate additional funds for Russia's war machine. Thirdly, coordination. Our researchers found it difficult in preparing their submission to this committee, partly because there is a lack of internationally coordinated information. It is our recommendation that Australia can take the lead in international coordination of sanctions by developing a sanctions database that enables sanctions tracking across multiple jurisdictions. With this database in place, this will enable easier research, but also will assist in reducing the sanctions arbitrage that was mentioned in point 1 earlier under consistency. Fourthly, confiscation. This is a really key point in our submission, one that I would like to spend some time on today. Australia should implement sanctions measures similar to those in the UK, which provide for the freezing, confiscation and redirection of assets belonging to sanctioned individuals and entities. Of the $500 billion of frozen Russian assets, approximately $10 billion reside here in Australia. Fifth, clarity. The Australian government should engage more proactively with civil society and the private sector and provide better access to sanctions data and resources. As I mentioned earlier, our researchers did find it hard to find information on the current sanctions regime, and I think some clarity here is required, improved clarity, so people know what's in place and therefore can make meaningful suggestions as to how the environment can be improved. 6, communication. You can't manage what you don't measure. Australia should establish a formal process for assessing and reporting on the effectiveness of Australia's sanctions regime. This could include regular reports to Parliament, regular reports on departmental websites. It could include consultation with affected communities. However, a set of independent metrics that can demonstrate the effectiveness or otherwise of Australia's sanctions regime. Point 7, corruption. Australia should strengthen the alignment between its sanctions regime and anti-corruption measures. This will ensure that individuals or companies that in and of themselves are not sanctioned, however they facilitate sanctioned activities, are held accountable under anti-corruption provisions. And finally, point 8, context. Australia needs to be flexible with its sanctions regime and adapt to shifting global dynamics. We at the moment are in a period of immense global turmoil. Apart from sanctioning Russian individuals and entities, Australia does need to work with its regional allies to ensure that sanctions also contribute to stability and security in our own Pacific region. In closing, it is the view of the Ukrainian Council of New South Wales that by taking a leadership role in this space, Australia can make a significant contribution to international efforts to hold Russia accountable for its barbaric actions in Ukraine. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mencinsky. Senator Birmingham, you have the call.